You finally let your guard down. After years of holding it together, being the rock, being strong, you broke. Something happened. Maybe your father died. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe the weight of everything just became too much and you cried. In front of her, the woman you love. She held you. She said the right things. She told you it was okay to be vulnerable, that she loved seeing this side of you, that it made you more human. But something changed after that night. She didn't leave immediately. It was subtle. A slight distance, less physical affection. The way she looked at you shifted by degrees so small you couldn't name them. Sex became less frequent. Her enthusiasm dimmed. 6 months later, she's gone. And you're left wondering, was it the crying? Here's what nobody tells you. What she said and what her biology registered were two completely different things. Today, we're going to break down the neuroscience of why male emotional displays can damage attraction. What actually happens in a woman's brain when she sees a man cry, and why millions of years of evolution don't care about modern ideas of emotional expression. This is uncomfortable territory, but understanding it might save your relationship. Let's start with the research that shocked the scientific community. In 2011, a team led by neuroscientist Noam Sobel at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel published a study in the journal Science that revealed something remarkable. Human tears contain chemical signals. The researchers collected tears from women who cried while watching sad movies. They then had men sniff these tears without knowing what they were smelling. The tears were odorless. The men couldn't consciously distinguish them from saline solution, but their bodies knew the difference. After sniffing women's tears, men rated photographs of women's faces as less sexually attractive. Their self-reported sexual arousal dropped. And when researchers measured their testosterone levels, they found a significant decline. The effect was confirmed with brain scans. Using functional MRI, the researchers showed that sniffing women's tears selectively reduced activity in brain regions associated with sexual arousal. Think about what this means. Tears contain invisible chemical messengers that directly lower male sexual interest. The women weren't even present. Just the tears themselves carried the signal. Sobel concluded, the signal is serving to time sexual behavior. It is a signal that allows its user to say, now is not the right time. Now, this study examined women's tears affecting men. What about men's tears affecting women? The research on this specific question is more limited, but we can extrapolate from what we know about female mate preferences and the evolutionary psychology of attraction. Women are attracted to men who can protect and provide. This isn't a cultural construct. It's a biological reality documented across 37 cultures by David Buss and across thousands of studies in evolutionary psychology. The traits women find attractive in men cluster around indicators of strength, dominance, status, and emotional stability. Deep voices, broad shoulders, social confidence. The ability to remain calm under pressure. These preferences exist because for millions of years, women who chose mates with these qualities had children who were more likely to survive. The preference is written into the female brain by natural selection. Now consider what crying signals. Crying is a display of distress. It's a signal that says, I cannot handle this situation. I need help. I am overwhelmed. In children, this signal elicits caretaking behavior from adults. It's adaptive. A crying baby gets fed, protected, comforted. But in an adult male, this same signal creates a conflict with the traits women are wired to find attractive. A man who cries is displaying vulnerability. He's signaling that he's overwhelmed, that his emotional resources are depleted, that he cannot, in this moment, be the protector and provider. Her conscious mind might register this as intimacy, as trust, as emotional depth. But her ancient limbic system registers it differently. It registers, this male may not be able to protect me. This male may not be a reliable provider. This male is displaying weakness at a moment when strength is expected. Research on facial masculinity and attraction supports this. Studies show that women perceive angry faces as more masculine and happy faces as more feminine. The face shapes associated with anger overlap with features signaling male sex. Crying, which involves similar facial configurations to sadness and distress, triggers perceptions that move away from masculinity. A 2024 study published in the journal Cognition and Emotion found that when women viewed male faces, angry expressions increased perceived masculinity while happy expressions decreased it. The researchers concluded that emotional expression directly impacts how masculine a face appears. When a man cries, his facial configuration shifts toward expressions associated with vulnerability and need. Evolutionarily, these are not the expressions of a dominant male. They're the expressions of someone seeking rescue. This creates what researchers call an attraction penalty. Not because crying is morally wrong, not because vulnerability is bad, but because the signals crying sends conflict with the signals that trigger female sexual attraction. Here's where it gets more complex. Context matters enormously. Research distinguishes between different types of male emotional expression and their effects on attraction. Not all vulnerability is created equal. A man crying at his mother's funeral is different from a man crying because he had a bad day at work. A man who sheds tears during a profound moment of connection is different from a man who frequently breaks down over minor stressors. The key variable is what the crying signals about the man's overall emotional resilience. If a man demonstrates consistent strength, competence, and emotional stability, and then cries during an extraordinary circumstance, the crying can actually increase perceived depth and humanity without damaging attraction. The tears are seen as evidence of emotional range, not emotional weakness. But if a man cries frequently or cries in response to ordinary stressors or uses crying as a regular emotional outlet, the signal changes. Now the tears indicate a pattern. They suggest that this man may not be able to handle life's pressures, that he may need more support than he provides. Research on mate preferences shows that emotional stability is one of the top traits women value in long-term partners. A 2023 study of over 17,000 women across 147 countries found that kindness-supportiveness was the most valued trait, followed closely by emotional stability. Note the order. Emotional stability is essential, but emotional stability doesn't mean never shows emotion. It means can regulate emotions effectively and doesn't become overwhelmed by normal life challenges. The man who cries at a funeral but remains composed during daily stressors signals emotional range plus stability. The man who cries regularly signals emotional instability. And instability triggers a reduction in attraction, regardless of how much the woman consciously values vulnerability. There's another factor at play, the protector instinct. Recent research published in Evolution and Human Behavior found that willingness to protect is one of the strongest predictors of male attractiveness to women. When women evaluated male partners, a man's willingness to defend her from physical threat was more important than his actual physical strength. The researchers found that when a man stepped away from a threat rather than confronting it, his attractiveness plummeted. The penalty for unwillingness to protect was described as a deal breaker. Crying in certain contexts can signal unwillingness or inability to protect. If a man breaks down during a crisis rather than responding with action, the woman's brain registers, "This male will not be able to defend me or our offspring when danger arrives." This isn't a conscious calculation. She doesn't think. His tears indicate reduced protection capacity. She feels something shift, a subtle cooling, a reduction in that ineffable quality we call attraction. The irony is that women consciously say they want men to be more emotionally expressive, and they genuinely believe this. They've been culturally programmed to value male vulnerability. They've read the articles, they've had the conversations. They sincerely think they would find a crying man more attractive, not less. But attraction doesn't run on conscious beliefs. It runs on ancient circuitry that doesn't read articles or attend therapy sessions. It runs on millions of years of survival calculations that equate male tears with reduced mate quality. This creates a painful double bind for men. Express emotion and risk attraction loss. Suppress emotion and risk being labeled emotionally unavailable or toxic. The cultural message says one thing, biology says another, and men are caught between them. So what's the solution? First, understand that not all emotional expression carries equal weight. Tears of joy at your child's birth. Attractive. Demonstrates emotional capacity and investment. Tears at a funeral or during profound grief. Neutral to positive. Demonstrates depth and appropriate emotional response. Tears during a movie or moving moment. Generally fine. Shows emotional accessibility without suggesting weakness. Tears during conflict with her. Risky. May signal inability to handle relationship stress. Tears during work stress or daily challenges. Most damaging. Signals inability to cope with ordinary life pressures. Tears that are frequent or seemingly disproportionate. Most damaging of all. Signals chronic emotional instability. Second, recognize the importance of recovery. Even if you do cry in front of her, how you recover matters. If you cry, then quickly regain composure, take action, and demonstrate that you're still capable and strong, the damage is minimized. If you cry and then continue to need support, comfort, and caretaking for an extended period, the damage compounds. Every additional hour you remain in a needy state reinforces the signal that you cannot handle life's pressures. The goal isn't to never cry. The goal is to demonstrate that crying is an appropriate, momentary response to extraordinary circumstances, not a chronic state or default coping mechanism. Third, choose your moments. This sounds calculating. It is. But so is everything else about attraction. If you're going to be vulnerable, do it from a position of established strength. Cry after you've demonstrated consistent competence, not during a period when you're already struggling. Cry about things that warrant tears, not about things that seem minor. Cry briefly, not extensively. The research on male vulnerability and attraction suggests that women are most receptive to male emotional expression when it's rare, contextually appropriate, and quickly followed by a return to composure. In other words, when it proves you have emotional depth without suggesting you have emotional problems. Finally, accept the asymmetry. This is the hardest part. Men and women face different rules regarding emotional expression and attraction. A woman crying in front of a man rarely damages his attraction to her. In fact, it often increases his protective instincts and emotional investment. But a man crying in front of a woman can damage her attraction. Not because women are cruel, not because society is unfair, but because evolution shaped male and female brains to respond differently to distress signals from potential mates. Women's tears lower men's testosterone and sexual arousal, as the Weizmann study showed. This appears to be a mechanism for timing sexual behavior, for signaling not now. Men's tears may have a different effect on women entirely. They may signal not him rather than not now. This asymmetry isn't going away. No amount of cultural messaging will override millions of years of evolutionary programming. The best you can do is understand the rules you're playing by and make strategic choices within them. She might tell you she wants to see you cry. She might genuinely believe it. But her ancient brain and her modern beliefs are running different software. And when they conflict, the ancient brain usually wins. The man who understands this has options. He can express emotion in ways that maintain attraction. He can choose contexts where vulnerability is safe. He can build such a strong foundation of demonstrated competence that occasional tears don't threaten her perception of his strength. The man who doesn't understand this often learns it the hard way. Through the slow cooling of attraction he can't explain. Through the relationship that dies without a clear cause. Through the confusion of doing what he was told was right and watching it backfire. Understanding female psychology isn't manipulation. It's adaptation. It's learning the actual rules rather than the rules you wish existed. Her biology doesn't care about your feelings about gender equality. It cares about survival. And for millions of years, survival meant choosing a mate who could remain strong when things got hard. That calculation is still running. Every time you cry in front of her, her brain is watching, evaluating, updating its assessment of your fitness as a mate. The question isn't whether this is fair. The question is whether you're going to account for it or pretend it doesn't exist. In the next video, we'll explore the flip side. What happens in a man's brain when a woman cries and why his response is completely different from hers. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And remember, the rules of attraction were written long before you were born. You can fight them or you can learn them. Only one of those strategies works. Let me leave you with one final thought. There's a difference between being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally expressive. These are not the same thing, and confusing them destroys relationships. Emotional intelligence means understanding your emotions, understanding her emotions, and navigating both effectively. It means knowing when to speak and when to act. It means recognizing what a situation calls for and delivering it. Emotional expressiveness means displaying your internal states outwardly. It means crying when you're sad, shouting when you're angry, laughing when you're happy. Women are attracted to emotional intelligence. They are not universally attracted to emotional expressiveness in men, despite what they say. A man with high emotional intelligence might feel devastated after a job loss, but he processes that devastation strategically. He allows himself to feel it fully, perhaps alone or with a therapist or with male friends. He works through it. And then he presents to his partner with a plan, with composure, with the sense that he has this handled. A man with high emotional expressiveness might feel that same devastation and immediately share it in its raw form. Crying, venting, seeking comfort, being held. The first man maintains attraction. The second man risks losing it. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about channeling them appropriately. It's about recognizing that your partner is not your therapist, not your mother, and not your emotional processing unit. She's your partner. And partners need to feel that the other person can handle life. Men have been sold a false bill of goods. The culture tells them that being more like women emotionally will make women like them more. That vulnerability is the key to intimacy. That crying is just being authentic. But authenticity without strategy is just oversharing. Vulnerability without strength is just weakness wearing a better name. And crying without context is just a signal that this man may not be able to handle what life throws at him. The men who thrive in relationships understand these nuances. They know when vulnerability builds connection and when it erodes attraction. They calibrate their emotional expression to the situation, the relationship stage, and their established reputation. They don't follow the advice of people who don't understand evolutionary psychology. They don't take relationship guidance from those who confuse what people say they want with what actually generates attraction. They study the game, they learn the rules, and they play to win. Your tears are data she's using to evaluate you, whether you like it or not. Whether she knows it or not, whether anyone thinks it's fair or not. That's the reality. Now you know it. What you do with that knowledge is up to you.